Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Just a few moments ago, Falcons general manager, who I believe to be a man in hiding. They don't like to show that guy because they love to avoid public scrutiny. And anytime that guy gets up there, there's a lot to be scrutinized about. And there was one simple theme about this press conference today, and it was, I guess you could say, accountability, but consistently, whether it was the kicking situation, whether it was Kirk Cousins, whether it was the poor draft picks, whether it was Kyle Pitts, there was one theme: we haven't been good enough. And that was just kind of a blanket answer to the entire press conference. That's kind of how he negated giving a real answer. So if you're like me and you're Falcons fans that were hoping for something a little more, even though I knew we weren't going to get more, it's kind of annoying because it's just more of that coach speak. But there is, I guess, a sense of accountability that Terry Fontenot was saying, I have not been good enough. But how is that going to change? There's no real answer to that. And that's the bigger problem in my eyes.
I mean, I felt really good coming. I can't believe you don't feel better. I mean, 30 minutes of used car salesman, just three. I'm telling you, there will be something done about this. Like whether it's, a national person or so. There's a funny moment. There's a funny story. There's a funny bit. Whatever it is, somebody's going to get a hold of it. And if you have a three-piece suit, tailor-made, and you can kiss some ass, maybe have a little bit of a silver tongue, you can have a job with the Atlanta Falcons. It's that simple. And that's all Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot are. They dress well, and they're able to sidestep questions very, very smoothly. I wouldn't even say that. Terry Fontenot looked a little nervous up there.
That was something that was very apparent from the get-go. For a guy that's kind of been this suave, smooth sailing, joke around, always has the right answer, kind of like almost like he's talking to a friend when he's talking to the media. It was a different looking feeling. Like it almost looked like the job has like aged this man like 8 years. Not that he looked bad, but it just looked like he was beat down from this season and maybe the collective 4 years of just being underwhelming.
The Falcons can do that too.
But he did not seem the same confident Terry Fontenot that we have come to know in these press conferences. Maybe that's just from the fact that he hasn't done a press conference in like 18 months.
Practice.
He hasn't had the practice. We come up here, if we didn't do a show in 18 months, we'd probably come up here and forget how to do a show. We do this every day. It starts to become second nature. Terry Fontenot has been literally in hiding. I have no idea what they do with Terry Fontenot during the season. They put him in a closet somewhere, and then he comes out. He's like, oh, the light of day. It looks different out here. That's what it kind of seemed to me up there. But once again, we didn't get a lot of answers. But I guess some sort of accountability. He didn't do good enough.
Yeah, I mean, that was the theme. The theme was, I don't know how many different times I heard the line of, words can only get you so far, or we could say all we want, but, actions have to, match. I think he said that exact thing like 4 or 5 times throughout this 30-minute press conference to a multitude of questions. It was Kirk Cousins. It was the bad drafting. It was a kicker question. It was, a money question. I mean, every single thing that he, it was like a default politic answer where, if somebody keeps jabbing you, just go, we love the military. That always, does well in politics. That's what it felt like. And what I took away from that, the microcosm of this entire thing was he is telling you he hasn't been good enough. He said that, and I'm talking to you, Arthur Blank. He said that he hasn't been good enough. And the expectations were clear and obvious this season, unlike in seasons past. Now, some could argue year 3, Arthur Smith, Terry Fontenot, that is mainly because of the division. We should have been in the playoffs. I can understand the poor quarterback play is just so egregious because we didn't invest in it. All of the excuses went out the window. I mean, this was an utter incompetent failure of missing the playoffs after leading a 6-3 record after 9 games with a commanding lead in the division. Utter collapse. It was kicking. It was quarterback play. It was poor coaching. It was all of the above. It was these acquisitions of Judon and Simmons failing to, come up with their end of the bargain.
There
were so many contributing factors that I don't know how Arthur Blank is sitting here and has confidence in the men who are in power, that he has empowered to lead this organization. They are telling you that they haven't been good enough. What makes you think one more year is going to change it? I don't understand. And I do know the answer to this. The answer is Arthur Blank doesn't give an F about what is best in terms of winning a Super Bowl. He is mostly concerned about relevance. He's mostly concerned about just getting back to the playoffs so his shiny shopping mall of a stadium can finally host a playoff game. He's more afraid of mediocrity than he wants success in terms of the ultimate goal.
I mean, there's no doubt about that, but my rebuttal to that thing, to what you're saying, would be we're not even making the playoffs, Alex. The guy's been here for 4 years. So if that's what he's most concerned about, like, you'd think by now they'd be like, all right, well, this guy can't get us back to that, even that just getting to the playoffs. He can't even get us there. So what makes us think that he can get us to the top of the mountain?
And the worst part is, they always like to speak about this collaboration, this looking inward. And I don't think anybody really spoke about it in terms of the Atlanta media, where he goes, we still have a lot of confidence in our process. The process that has resulted in 4 straight losing seasons. And it's not even like the talent level from 2021 to 2024 is vastly improved. It's vastly improved. And we are 1 game better.
Well, I mean, listen, let's be real about the only reason Terry Fontenot has a job today, and that's Michael Penix Jr. It is the only reason, because if you look at this collectively, and I actually did something on the site about the rest of this draft class that is going to be forgotten about because of Michael Penix Jr., and I hate that that's going to happen. I mean, I understand. Listen, the quarterback position, you get that right, that buys you a lot of time. Basically, everything you do goes out the window, because everything else he did this offseason, just think about this, right? He was a huge part of bringing Raheem Morris, which is very, very questionable, and nixing the idea of Bill Belichick. Bad decision. If you brought in Bill Belichick and we made the playoffs, which we probably would have with an experienced head coach, I would bet a lot of money on that. You look a lot better as a GM. The draft class behind Michael Penix, what in the hell was that? I mean, it might be the worst rounds 2 through 7 I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. I mean, quite literally, they played a total 7 players. Played a total of 11, maybe 15 games total when you combine Bertrand and walk out special teams. On offense and defense, 15. Ruccaroro played 11. Everybody else was basically a no-show. That was 7 guys you drafted in rounds 2 through 7 that didn't even play on the field. Now, Braylon Trice tore an ACL. Doesn't matter. It doesn't take away the fact. It is terrible. And all those guys, there is nothing promising about any of those players. Brandon Dorlus, where the hell is he? Didn't even appear. Inactive every single game. The kicking situation, which Terry Fontenot once again said, I got to do better. Before
you go there, I just want to
I'm going over all of them.
I know. I want to add on to the draft class that it wasn't like there were all pro players ahead of those rookies that were like, well, we can't put the rookies in over them. We've got these all pro. The defensive line sucked. I mean, Bertrand, he had every opportunity in the world, both of the defensive linemen as well. I mean, every single turn, it was like, well, that guy's not good. Why isn't the rookie getting any burn?
And then, and then the biggest one, obviously, Kirk Cousins. I mean, what a disaster that was. And then on top of that, the Falcons kicking situation. Like, if he had done any of these one big decisions, small decisions right, the Falcons are in the playoffs today, and they might have a chance of making some noise in an NFC that has some question marks around a lot of the teams. So it's absurd to me. Like, he did everything possible wrong, from big things like Kirk Cousins and Raheem Morris to little things to, Judon, Justin Simmons, whatever.
I think is getting
but
back.
Judon, the draft class outside of Michael Penix, like, literally, it was one of the worst off seasons you could possibly have outside of Michael Penix.
We also have to, he said it himself, that is Fontenot, that they are in a collaborative effort, him and Raheem, and it's this make-believe word to shift around responsibility. It's honestly genius. I'm going to take a page out of their book eventually. When it's review time in the year and you go, what do you think? What do you do? I'm going to go, well, we do everything together, buddy. But I wanted to say, so he's doing all this collaborative stuff. And so I talked to everybody around the apartment building, around Roswell, and I just to get a temperature of Falcons fans. And one consistent theme, and it's very obvious. What took so long to go to Michael Penix? If you went to him earlier, maybe we would have been in the playoffs. Now, this was a collaborative effort between Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. Now, you want to say, give credit where credit's due. He did draft Michael Penix Jr., but he's also at fault for not turning to him sooner. And it was clear and obvious the reason was because they paid Kirk Cousins all that money. It was clear and obvious. He practically admitted it. That also has to go against him, because I don't know how, in your right mind, you draft a guy who is by far and away the most experienced, other than Bo Nix, the most experienced quarterback in that draft. And he said it. The plan was you give him 2 years, Kirk Cousins, 2 years guaranteed. That is the expectations. He is going to start for 2 years. Michael Penix came in amid a playoff push with all this pressure against some pretty good competition and the Commanders, at least the Commanders, and he looked like he belonged. Your original plan was to sit that guy who looked like he belongs in the NFL for a whole nother year? That's their plan? Are you joking? Well, he would have been 30 by the time he started. And on top of that, we're just ignoring the fact that they can't even acknowledge the fact that the cheat code in the league is a rookie quarterback contract. And they just said, well, the belief was always that we were going to have this money tied up in for 2 years. So we're going to practically only get 2 years of Michael Penix rookie contract, because that fifth-year option, though it is less expensive than a high caliber deal, it is still way more expensive than the other 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it after the break, the things that he said about Kirk Cousins in the future, because those were extremely intriguing. And you kind of said one of the things that is the most laughable, which is like, well, we were always expecting to spend $40 million on the quarterback. Dude, what do you say? I mean, like, and I guess that's not really to do with what we're going to talk about next. It'll be a little bit part of it, because he said several other things. But you're right. It's absolutely insane to say something like that. And just that if there was anything you should have said we screwed up, it was the Kirk Cousins thing, because that's one of the worst decisions across the NFL of the last decade, probably. I mean, it was $100 million for 14 games. It's unbelievable. We're going to talk a lot more about Terry Fontenot and Kirk Cousins coming up after the break.